Welcome to the podcast ABCs of Parenting Adult Children. Please join us as we discuss parenting adult children and the unique struggles that it comes along with.
Hello, and thank you for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe and follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Please take the time to leave a review where you listen to podcasts or on our website at parentingadultchildren.org. My Instagram channel is parentingadultchildren125. Video episodes are uploaded to rumble.com/user/James Moffitt and on my YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@JamesMoffitt. You can also help underwrite the cost of producing this podcast by making a one-time donation to support this podcast at my PayPal address of jcmoffitt, JCMOFFITT at iCloud.com, or be a monthly supporter by going to www.buzzsprout.com/2511157/support. I have all this information here on the screen where you can see it. Please subscribe and follow those channels for future updates. I release new episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Thank you for listening, and now to our featured presentation. Hello and welcome to ABC's of Parenting Adult Children podcast. My name is James Moffitt. Today I'm honored to be joined by Mary Tocco, a passionate voice in the world of health freedom, informed parenting, and generational wellness. With over 40 years of experience in natural health education, Mary brings a bold and heartfelt perspective on how early parenting choices echo into adulthood and how parents can stay connected, supportive, and aware as their children grow into independent thinkers. In this conversation, we'll explore everything from the power of intuition in parenting to the impact of childhood health decisions on adult life and how to stay grounded as a parent in a fast-changing world. Whether you're navigating differing values with your adult children or trying to rebuild connection and trust, Mary offers wisdom rooted in experience and a deep love for family. Mary, thank you for being here today.
So glad to be with you today as well, James.
Yeah. Hey, do me a, I know that was a long intro, but go ahead and add anything to that you would like as an introduction to the listening audience.
Okay. Well, first of all, I had 5 children. I started having my babies in 1980. My oldest just turned 45 yesterday. I have 3 boys and 2 daughters. 2 of my daughters are chiropractors now, and one is a family nurse practitioner. But my ex-husband, who unfortunately passed away, we raised our children outside the medical model, which means we raised our children 100% natural. We did not use medication or drugs. We never had pediatricians. And we made that decision based on years of research before having our children. So I tell people that I raised my children the way nature would have us raise them. And that's with as little medical intervention as possible. And as a result, I have, 5 amazing, healthy adult kids. We never had any of the issues that are so difficult in today's society. But I also have 13 grandbabies that are being raised. Yeah. Yes, 13 grandbabies that are being raised the very same way. So, no doctors, no pediatricians, natural birth, many of them at home, if not at home, at birthing centers. I actually had the pleasure of delivering one of my grandchildren because he came so fast. And so that was all very exciting. But, people don't realize that for centuries, people raised their children naturally. And I'm really big on the family unit. I think that's very important. So then I began to do lectures in 1995 on the dangers of childhood vaccinations, because over the years I'd been doing extensive research on, if we vaccinate, what are some of the issues that we can have from vaccinating? And over like 45 years of research now, I believe that vaccinations are, number one, they're not necessary. Number 2, they are very dangerous. The side effects and the direct effects from the vaccines are far worse than a week or 2 of chickenpox or measles or mumps or whooping cough. So my main part of my adult life, I've been attending conferences all over the country and Canada, educating people on a natural approach to raising their children, and of course, the dangers of the vaccinations. And so that's where I'm really considered an expert on that topic.
Okay.
I guess that's enough about me. I've been just doing it for 40 something years now.
Well, it's good. All right. So after 45 years of independent research, you claim that vaccines do not protect and are the number one reason. And 52% of American children are suffering chronic illnesses requiring medications. So I'm going to make a statement here for my
Okay.
listening audience. I think a lot of this is going to come as a shock, and I think it's going to fly in the face of current medical quote unquote research and the messaging that parents are getting from the medical doctors and like Department of Public Health here in South Carolina. And I know that it's been a while since I am still a parent. We have adult children too, but it's been a while since our children have been in public school. And I know from experience that when you register your children for school, what's the first thing that they ask for?
Well, they want you to get the vaccines and they say, we need your vaccine record showing
Right.
that your
They want
children are
they want
updated.
proof. They want proof that your children have been vaccinated, right?
Well,
And
yes.
so I want to, as we go through this, I want to help educate the parents that are listening, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
encourage them. And I absolutely don't want to I don't want parents to feel guilty if they have been encouraged through the years to get their children vaccinated, right?
And I agree. And I agree. And you know, as one who's been speaking to parents who don't vaccinate or who have partially vaccinated or who have vaccinated your children, the last thing I want to do is make a parent feel bad about their previous decisions because we don't know what we don't know and we won't find what we're not looking for. And we trust the doctors and the pediatricians because they're the experts. We trust our government, at least some people do. We trust the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and we trust the FDA. And we have all this trust in these agencies through our government without really realizing that they have a different agenda. And your children are maybe not at the top of that agenda. And so my goal is to share information. And believe me, James, I've been to hundreds of conferences where I've been the keynote and I'm speaking to half of my audience who have vaccinated children. They know that something went wrong after those vaccines. They felt it, they saw it. Their doctors wouldn't admit it. And they might have had another child coming on the way, or they might have had 2 or 3 other children that they didn't vaccinate. I've dealt with all different types of parents. And the last thing I want to do is make them feel bad. Unfortunately, I do bear a lot of shocking information that is only available if you've been digging very deep as many years as I have. I will say this, the doctors don't know what I know. The doctors don't get the education on vaccinations like we assume. They get 2 weeks of introduction in med school, and that is it. They don't know what's in the vaccines. They don't know how they're made. They don't know about the bioengineering of viruses in labs. They don't know about a thing called adjuvants, which stimulate the immune system and really make it angry, which is what I think is causing a lot of the injury. They don't know any of this. And I tell people right from the get-go, I don't give medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't have a medical degree of any kind. I'm a holistic, self-taught person who's just been doing this for so many years that I'm considered an expert in this field. But I want parents to know that, number one, you are responsible for making medical decisions for your children. Number two, you should never be coerced or shamed into doing anything. And if you're putting your children in school, many, many states have exemptions available. Like South Carolina, where I live, they have a religious exemption and a medical exemption. So if you, as you may not know, many of the vaccines contain aborted fetal cell tissue. They have been using aborted babies to make vaccines, medication, cosmetics, and food products for many, many years.
Wow.
Okay. And again, I have everything to prove this. This is not my opinion. This is based on fact.
I knew about the cosmetics. I didn't know about the rest of it.
Yeah. And I can show all those receipts. But the bottom line is if you believe that abortion is wrong, or if you believe that it might not be a good thing to be aborting human DNA cells into your baby, then you have a religious exemption. That's what I say. In Michigan, we have 3. We have a philosophical exemption. as well as a medical exemption and the religious. So it depends on where you live. And a lot of that information you can find by just going to your, local health department. What are my vaccine exemptions? But all it takes is signing a form to get your children into school without a vaccination.
Well, I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power, right? And
Yes.
ignorance on the flip side of that is dangerous. And so I think as parents, it's our duty to be as informed and educated as possible, because we have to make a lot of important decisions, right, with our children. And
Yes.
obviously adult children between the ages of 18 and 30, what we did with them in years gone by, that's water under the bridge, and there's nothing we can do about that. But we have to consider grandchildren, right? You said you had 13 grandchildren.
Yes, but James, people have to realize that when they go to their regular medical visit and they're asked to get a pneumococcal vaccine or a DTaP vaccine or a tetanus vaccine or the shingles vaccine or even the measles vaccine, they're asking adults to do all of this now because they
Sure.
passed the Adult Vaccination Act back in the late 1990s. They realized that the vaccines they gave them as children were not protecting them and that they would need continual vaccinations as they got older. So this affects everybody, not just children.
True.
And so, that's very important. They're recommending a Gardasil cervical cancer vaccination. They started out recommending it for girls who have cervix, and now they recommend it for boys. And I'm always thinking, well, boys don't have a cervix. And a lot of it just doesn't make sense. But if you have a daughter or a son who's in, maybe 12 or 13 or 16 or 18 or 24 or whatever, they're going to recommend a cervical cancer vaccination for you as an adult. And you need to make the decision. Am I at risk? Is it a big deal? Do the risks outweigh the benefits? As parents, you need to make these decisions, or as adults. So it affects everybody.
So, point in case, I had chickenpox when I was younger, right, as a child. And I just went to Publix Pharmacy on St. James Avenue here in Goose Creek to get my medicine. And they looked at their computer screen and says, "Oh, you're due for a shingles vaccine because of your age." And I was like, they don't know whether I had chickenpox or not, right? And I've been seeing TV ads for the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years about the shingles vaccine, right?
Yes.
So TV stations are being told or instructed to push that information out, right? Oh yeah, because who makes the vaccines? Big
They
Pharma
make
makes those
That's
vaccines,
right. They make
right?
big
So
money.
follow the money, and they try to incentivize you through fear. In other words, they show you pictures of these angry rashes that you can get if you get shingles, and if you have had the chicken pox when you were younger, you have the shingles virus living dormant in your body, and could happen at any time. So, they're fear mongering, and my wife had the shingles, and it's no joke. It can be painful, right? And
Yes.
uh, it's it's a catch 22 in that I don't want to have that painful rash anywhere on my body, because I don't want to have to endure that. But on the flip side of that, you have to count the costs, and you have to make an educated decision. Would I rather be uncomfortable for a week or a couple of days or whatever versus injecting some kind of lab experiment into my body, right?
Well, I have some I'm going to talk about two different things related to that. So first of all,
Okay.
based on my experience, my knowledge, and my research, I believe that the chickenpox vaccination that they're giving children now is an altered form of what we got as children. I'm one of 11 children. Everyone in our family, in our neighborhood, got chickenpox. In fact, even Robert Kennedy Jr. has said this. Every year in the United States, 5 million children every year would have either chickenpox or measles or mumps or roseola. It was a normal childhood thing. Everybody got them. Everybody went through a week and a half of discomfort. There were no deaths from it. Okay. And this went on for a long decades until they came up with the chickenpox vaccine. Now, all of a sudden, the chickenpox are life-threatening illnesses. Okay. So, and then I think too, we all know that things mutate over years. And I believe what they're giving the children in the chickenpox vaccine now is a different one than what we would have gotten, 40, 50 years ago. But currently, you'll get a kick out of this. Currently, my 3 grandchildren in Michigan have chickenpox. Currently, as we're speaking. And the 2 weeks ago, my son, Preston, who is 34 years of age, their daddy, he works at Whole Foods, and he did have a very light case of chickenpox when he was a little boy, like just in the groin area. He came home and he had a full body outbreak of chickenpox just the last couple weeks. And so when that happened, we were like, oh, well, your kids are going to end up having it. And the cousins and everyone, they all got together. Bottom line is this week, all 3 of his children are breaking out with chickenpox. Now, my son did say that it was miserable being itchy and having his body, covered in pox. It was not fun. But he also knows that he went through a boot camp for his immune system. And he knows that by going through this process and getting through it, his immune system is stronger and better today than it was a month ago. And see, that's the beauty about the immune system. It is constantly dealing with things that we don't even know about. Every day you go out at the grocery store, at a park, at church, you're taking in foreign things through your respiration system. We're all being exposed to things all the time. So we don't know where he was exposed. We can assume maybe when he was working. But the bottom line is chickenpox is not life-threatening. All 3 of my grandbabies right now have been still out there playing in the backyard, swimming in the pool. They're having sleepovers. I kid you not. So now my other grandkids who have been visiting with them are probably going to end up with chickenpox in 2 weeks. We call it the gift that keeps on giving, because when you allow your children to have these normal childhood illnesses that are not life-threatening, they develop a robust immune system. You see, we come into life as infants with everything we need. We're just underdeveloped. And it takes years of being exposed to our natural environment in order to develop our immune system. That's why babies have rashes, colds, runny noses. They have rashes on their bum when they get exposed to new foods. This is what we call normal immunity. And actually, I wrote a book on this. It's on my website. And I don't even have one with me to show you, but it's called Natural Immune Development, A Deeper Understanding. And I give all this documentation and research about the power of the natural immune system. My children have been going through things, which they have their whole life. We didn't call them like, oh, you're sick. Ooh, we're scared of it. I would tell them your body's doing exactly what God intended it to do. And I would actually pat them on the back. Okay, now you have a fever. And yep, you're going to be on the couch for a day or 2. But guess what? This is exactly what your body has to do to prepare you for adulthood. And so this is the one thing that people don't understand. God did not forget to make us with an immune system. In fact, in my lectures, I often share that, when God created the earth, he created the animals, and he said everything in it was great and everything was good. And then he created man in his image. And after he created us, he said, and this is good. Do you think God would forget to give us an immune system that is capable of defending itself, even in a toxic world like we have? The animals do it. They're out in the wild doing it. And we do know that the weak ones don't survive. That's called survival of the fittest. And I'm not saying that we should let our weak babies die, but I'm just saying we have to understand that God gave us an immune system, and that our immune system is going to go through aerobics every once in a while. Every couple of years, we might have that really, heavy duty bout of the flu, or we might have fevers. We don't understand why. Children go through this. I think too that shingles, as I stated, in my opinion, it's a theory that shingles is an adapted form or a mutated form of chickenpox that we had when we were younger that has been made in a laboratory. So I don't know if that cleared up that question or not.
I think that
Natural Immune Development. It's a blue book. and it's on my website. I normally have them handy to hold up, but obviously I'm not prepared for that. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking when I came here. I actually kind of came here on a fluke. But anyway. Okay, and I also have a 6-part DVD series on there too.
Okay.
You might get a screenshot of that. It's called Vaccines, Risks, Research. No. Vaccine Risk, Responsibility, and Rights.
I found Mary's book, and I want to share it with the listening audience or the watching audience. Share. There we go. So go ahead and talk about your book a little bit there, Mary.
Well, after being a speaker for so many years, parents who choose not to vaccinate, I was getting calls all the time and emails all the time and texting. Like, "Oh, if I don't vaccinate, how do I promote health? What do I do if my child has a fever? What do I do if they have a rash? What if they have swollen glands?" And so, because of really honestly wanting to help parents know how to shift from being somebody who was dependent on vaccinations and medication to somebody who would be less dependent on them. And again, I don't tell people what to do. I just tell them how I did it, and I back it up with science and research. I reference 2 immunologists that I studied under in this book, because obviously, in order to learn what I've learned, I had to study under people who were authorities. And I referenced Dr. Stephen Marini, who is a PhD immunologist as well as a chiropractor. And then I have another one, Dr. Tatiana Abukanich. She was a Harvard grad. She worked out of Stanford and Harvard Medical. She took a break to have a daughter. And in the process, she thought she would look up what all these people who are worried about vaccines say. She ran across my information. We ended up doing a lot of talking and podcasting together. Eventually, she traveled with me and spoke with me. So I quote both of them and I bring up their research about the immune system. So this isn't based on Mary Tocco's opinion. This is immunology. And what we learn is that if an immunologist at Stanford or Harvard University is doing research and you bring up anything anti-vaccine or against like the adjuvants in the vaccines or the dangers of vaccines, they will immediately stop and say, we're not looking into that. That's not allowed. We won't get money for it. So anything that is even mentions the word vaccines in a negative light, they will get no money to do research.
Right.
And so that's very important. So
So
my book is about that.
what is your website? Childhoodshots.com. Let's bring that up. There we go.
There
Look,
I am.
that looks familiar.
Yes.
Empower and ignite your passion for truth. Welcome to
That's
Mary
right.
Tocco's natural health site. Avia, that's great. So that's childhoodshots.com, common spelling. Childhoodshots.com.
Yep.
All right, very good. So I wanted to share that with the listening audience, or I
Thank you.
actually create a video. The video episode uploads to Rumble and to my YouTube channel, so people can actually watch this online, watch the video.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The
Ooh,
elephant that's been on all of our minds since 2020, and it
yes.
has a name called COVID, right?
Yes.
And so there's been, since COVID, since our wonderful government tried to shut our country down permanently over COVID. What did that doctor say? What was his name? That kept getting in front of the microphone.
Fauci.
Fauci. Yeah. Dr. Fauci said, if you will just quarantine and stay at home for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, that's all we're asking you for is 2 weeks. If you'll stay at home and quarantine yourself and not go out into public for 2 weeks, this will be resolved. Right. So he kept saying that, and he kept saying it, he kept saying it, and it kept getting worse and kept getting worse.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, we've got this pandemic on our hands and people are dying. And I'm the direction that I'm going with this is the COVID vaccination, right? And so we seniors and the rest of the world that was listening, we were told that if you're a senior and you have any underlying conditions like COPD, like diabetes, any health issue that could cause problems, then you're more susceptible to having severe complications like winding up on a breathing tube in the ICU, blah, blah, blah. So my wife and I, along with the rest of America, had to decide whether we were going to take the COVID vaccine or not. And because my wife has COPD, since I have hypertension, since I have diabetes and other things going on, we felt that the best decision for us was to take both of the vaccines. And during that time, well, my employer, Roper Hospital, I was a system administrator at Roper Hospital. Roper Hospital made it mandatory for conditions of employment that you were going to get the vaccine, or you could possibly be terminated. And we've heard stories of law enforcement agencies and the like that fired police officers, fired EMS, medical professionals, because they chose not to get the COVID vaccine. And I must say that, and I want to say this on the record, that, and I think you'll agree with me, we all have to make informed decisions about our healthcare, right? And so
Yes.
if you, like myself and my wife, decided to get the COVID vaccine for whatever reasons, then I respect that, right? If you decided that you did not want to get the COVID vaccine for whatever reasons, I respect that as well. It all goes back to the, do I wear my mask? Don't I wear the mask? Blah, 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 And so that's kind of the the elephant in the room. And it was just a horrible tragedy and debacle that we were forced into. Businesses were shut down. People lost their livelihood. A whole host of consequences happened because of what our government kind of forced us into. I figured you might want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, again, fear is a very big motivator. And unfortunately, the internet no longer allows you to do a deep dive into these things. They've censored everything out. My website has been censored. I had a Facebook page I still have like 10,000 followers, but they censor everything. So unfortunately, even if you were trying to do a deep dive back in that time, unless you were ahead of it, like I was, and like many other researchers, you didn't know who to believe. You didn't know who to listen to. We were all afraid in the beginning, and I did everything I could during that period of time to reach people as far as what I knew and what I believed. I was that woman who was downtown Charleston in front of the Department of Education building with a megaphone saying, take our children out of the masks. It's causing harm. That was me. I was out there, trying to educate people as the best way that I could, because there was so much confusion and so much fear. But, I rely on science and I rely on studies. For example, just about the mask. I knew back then that wearing a mask, and this might sound kind of crude, wearing a mask to protect yourself and people from a virus that is so small, it's like saying when you have flatulence in a pair of jeans, it's not going to get out of the blue jeans and get into the environment. Okay? Masks do not work. They do not protect. There's no way on earth those masks that you bought, the paper ones, are going to do anything to protect you. I'm going to right now, I'll quote Stanford Medicine, cardiovascular medicine. Wearing a face mask has adverse psychological and physiological effects. Long-term consequences of wearing a face mask on health are detrimental. This is from Stanford Medical University. Okay, cloth or fabric, neither are a medical device nor a personal protection equipment. That's their quote. They do not stop the spread of COVID infection. And that is a Duke University graduate of MIT, Dr. Andrew Kaufman. They decrease oxygen intake when you have them on. They increase carbon dioxide buildup in your lungs. Toxins can re-enter the body through stress and cortisol. It shuts down vital immune processes. This is just about the masks. So my point is, if you're looking at the internet for your information, it's very difficult to get the real information. Very difficult.
Much of it's going to be misinformation.
Absolutely. And you know what they say? They call me misinformation, by the way. People like me are considered misinformation. And yet I pull up medical documentation for everything that I say. But they'll say it's misinformation. So it's very difficult. It's not easy. That's why I encourage people to buy books that are written by researchers who are not involved with big pharma, who are outside of medical the medical monopoly, who write on this stuff and show you the true science, because that's the only way you're going to get it, is by
Here's
looking at people outside.
right. So let me tell you something funny.
Sure.
So I work security part-time at Walmart, and it's just a circus, right? And so I watch the mass of humanity flow in and out of Walmart every day. We all go to big box stores. We want to buy stuff cheap. Groceries are expensive. I'm certainly not making fun of anybody for going to Walmart or Target or any of these big box stores trying to save a buck, right? But I see people wearing masks. And what's funny is, not just at Walmart, I'll be driving down the street. I'll be going back and forth to work, whatever, and I'll look over and I will see a person sitting in their car by themselves with a mask on. And I'm like, I hate to say this, but that's just stupid. They've been brainwashed by our government to think that that mask is going to protect them from all manner of viruses or an airborne, blah, 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 whatever, right? And
Yes.
in I don't have if somebody wants to wear a mask and they think it's protecting themselves from whatever, I respect that. Again, whether you decide, if you make a medical decision for yourself or whatever, and you decide you want to take a vaccine, great, I respect that. If you decide you want to wear a mask, that's fine. But inside a closed car with an air conditioner going and you got a mask on, I'm like, what? I don't get it. Or they'll be outside in the parking lot wearing a mask, right?
I know. And James, I thought it was terrible when they were making children out on a playground wear a mask. How about you can't go to the beach because of COVID? You can't go to a beach, fresh air, sunshine, wonderful, seawater with minerals, and you can't go to the beach during COVID. All of it was nonsense and all of it was unnecessary. But I believe it was a true test to see how far they could push the
Oh, yeah.
American people. And I think they were highly successful at getting a lot of people to comply. But I do think there's a shift taking place. I know that a lot, like, for example, I know I didn't wear a mask. In fact, I wore a masquerade mask to Publix and to Walmart and to the PetSmart in protest. Do you know what I mean? A masquerade mask.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And I did Facebook lives because I was trying to get a point across. People, the mask isn't protecting you. Don't listen to it. It's fear mongering. And so, but again, if people want to wear a mask, that's their choice. But don't mandate what I have to do with my body. I don't feel that that's right. And I don't think it's right to put children in masks out on the playground while they're running around trying to get fresh air and they're rebreathing all of their carbon monoxide. COVID is a whole nother discussion for another hour or something, but
I'm sorry. It was
okay.
just a rabbit hole I wanted to jump down because it was on my mind.
I
But
thought you were talking about the other elephant in
okay,
the room.
well, another funny thing I want to say before we go there. One of the things that Americans learned by putting on a mask was that your breath stinks. Right? That was one of the first things we learned. I was like, when I was wearing a mask, I was like, good Lord, what is that smell? And either a loved one or your wife or your husband or whoever was like, yeah, that's how your breath stinks. That's what you're smelling.
Well, and I
You're like,
think too,
oh
we
my
have to
God.
realize that when we exhale, it's part of our detox pathways. So as you're exhaling, you're detoxing pollutants that don't belong in your body. And then the mask is accumulating that. And it's a breeding ground for bacteria. I don't know how many people washed their mask every time they took it off. I don't know how many people changed their masks throughout the day. I don't know if people ever did. In fact, when they started selling those cloth masks and people were making money off of it and making them all flowery and they were bedazzling them with sparkles and stuff,
Sure.
those masks were harboring filthy bacteria breath
Right.
for months unless
Right.
they were washed every night. And I doubt that people washed them. So they're not safe. They're not effective. They're not safe. And I pray to God, American people wake up and stop falling for that because it's just not, there's no science to support that.
All right. So let's talk about the other elephant in the room. What elephant are you talking about?
Well, I think right now we have Robert Kennedy Jr., thank God, who is Secretary of Health and Human Services. And he's talking a lot about the childhood illness we have in this country. Our children are very, very sick. And do you know, and again, this is a whole nother topic of discussion, but we have more babies die the first year of life in this country than 33 other countries in the world.
I did not know that.
Yes. Shame on us, because we have more doctors, more pediatricians, more specialized equipment, more hospitals, more neonatal care units, more emergency care. We don't have any children who are dying of starvation. Our children have clean water to drink in this country. I don't care how poor you are. You can turn on a tap and get water. You can bathe. Okay. They're not living like third world countries where they have puddles to drink out of. We supposedly the best sanitation system in the world and the best water system in the world. And even our poor people eat food every day. They're not starving. Why are so many babies dying of crib death, unexplained death, a respiratory failure the first year of life? More than 33 other countries?
That's crazy.
And I'm going to be speaking this Thursday coming up, right? And I'm going to be touching on this because I've been doing a deep dive into what's causing that. But I think Robert Kennedy Jr. is very, very concerned about how sick our children are. And, we do vaccinations in this country to avoid getting ill. Keep in mind, people, we get vaccines before we're sick. We don't get them because we're sick. We give them to children before they're sick. And then our children have more chronic, debilitating autoimmune problems than any other country in the world. And we do twice as many vaccines as any other country in the world. We have a problem. And that's why Robert Kennedy Jr. is so passionate about it. And he's been involved in this movement for 20 something years. He's not new to this. And so he knows exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to bring the science out that's going to show all the things that are making us sick in this country and why our children, 52 to 54% of the children in this country are sick and on medication because of chronic illness.
That's crazy. The other day I read something, there are like hundreds of vaccines that are being pushed on the American people. Do you have that number? Do you know how many vaccines?
Yes. I think before a child is 2, by the time they're 18 months, they're going to get about 40 vaccinations before they're even talking. Okay. And by the time they're a teenager, 18, they're going to have between 85 and 90 vaccinations injected into their bodies. And people, I'm telling you, as God is my witness, this is an experiment on humanity. Not one of these vaccinations has ever gone through the proper safety studies that drugs go through to get approved. Not one. I don't care if it's the polio, the whooping cough, the diphtheria, pertussis, the measles, the mumps, rubella, the pneumococcal. None of them have gone through proper safety studies in order to show that they're safe and effective at what they're doing. And this is why Bobby Kennedy is so adamant about getting the science out there, proving that these things are safe and not causing all this illness. Now, Mary Tocco opinion? Well, let me ask you this. James, when you were born, within hours of taking your first breath, were you given a vaccination that was made for prostitutes and drug users?
Well, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this. I was born in
weren't.
Germany, and my sister and I were in an orphanage. And I think
Okay.
the chances of us getting a vaccine back then in Germany at an orphanage was probably slim to none. I would say we probably did not get any kind of vaccines.
You probably didn't. And I will tell you this much. The vaccination that they're giving babies the first day they're born in this country, that they're recommending now, was made for prostitutes and drug users back in the 90s. And when they didn't want it, they literally went to Congress and said, oh, well, let's give it to the babies. Oh, okay. Well, let's do a study. How long do you think they studied that before they just threw it in with the vaccine program and gave it the day of birth? 7 days.
Oh my God.
They gave it to a group of children and said, they made it through. Let's give it. So now they ask parents, they say it's a requirement. It's not. It's not a law. You have a right to say absolutely not, to give your baby a vaccination the day they're born before they've even breastfed, before they've even had a chance to get into the world, 24 hours. They're given a vaccination that contains very, very, very high levels of aluminum, which is an adjuvant, which is designed to stimulate their brand new immune system. And I believe that this is probably the most unscientific vaccination they could ever put in the childhood program. And I have met parents whose babies have died within hours of getting it, within hours.
No.
And they say, oh, it wasn't the vaccine. Absolutely. And then they go back in at 2 months and get another one, along with a whole bunch of other vaccinations. So we do have a problem. We have a problem that none of this has been properly safety studied, and the doctors don't know absolutely. They know very little about what they're giving these babies. In fact, I challenge parents, write this down. The first shot given to newborns has 250 micrograms of aluminum in that vaccine. The only safety study that I have ever found, doing all my research over the years, was done back in 1993. And it was looking at the aluminum levels in parenteral nutrition given to infants in the hospital that require nutrition, IV nutrition. It's called parenteral nutrition. And back then they discovered that anything over 20 micrograms of aluminum could lead to neurological development delay at 18 months of age, and later on cause bone calcium issues. I've got all the studies. And yet the one they give your baby, if you don't know better, and if you don't defend them, they're going to give your baby a vaccine that contains 250 micrograms of aluminum within moments of their birth. And here's one more thought. Write this down, folks, if you want. By the time your child is fully vaccinated at 18 months, they would have received 4,925 micrograms of aluminum through their well baby shots. And this is accumulation over time. These things don't get excreted, because you know why I know that? The CDC admits that they've never looked into what happens after. They look at the local place where the baby gets a vaccine. They study the local injection area, but they never look at systemic accumulation of any of this in the human body. And to me, this is a crime.
I have to say it's downright criminal. That kind of makes me angry.
And it
really does.
Will. And you know what I tell parents? When you start learning about what was injected into your babies because you trusted your pediatrician, you're going to be very angry. You're going to be outraged. And all I can say is, number one, I'm sorry that nobody told you the truth, because you know what, James, I answer to God, and one of us is lying, and it's not me. It's either the pharmaceutical company, your pediatricians who might not know better, the CDC, FDA, the health department. Somebody's lying about this. And I will tell you before God, I'm not lying about it. I have nothing to gain. I don't have big pharma behind me or some big organization behind me motivating me to do this. I do this because I believe God called me to do this, because I had the opportunity to learn about this before I had my children. And a lot of my brothers and sisters didn't vaccinate because of my influence. And to this day, they're grateful. And now grandchildren and nieces and nephews because of my influence. So I believe God called me to do this, and he's given me the endurance and the passion to keep doing it, even though the government says the opposite, for over 40 years.
And what did you say they call you now?
Well, I'm Maha Mary. That's what my new nickname is. Maha Mary, for Make America Healthy Again. And, you know, people say, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. I'm pro-health. I'm pro-natural health. I'm pro-natural immunity. And yes, I never gave my children vaccines, and none of my grandbabies have them. And they are the healthiest kids I know. They're talking by 2. They're doing everything normal kids used to do. They're potty training early. They're learning how to read and write. Most of them are home educated. They're doing phenomenal. We don't have learning problems. We don't have asthma. We don't have diabetes, autism. We don't have anxiety, depression issues. They're not on any medications. In fact, I would basically stand here and tell you that none of them have ever had a prescription drug. So obviously there's a better way to do it, because all the children that get vaccinated, they're on antibiotics all the time. They're sick with everything. They have ear infections, which is directly related to vaccines. They're sensitive to dairy, which is because they use dairy products in vaccines. They're sensitive to peanuts and their peanut allergies because they use an adjuvant, peanut adjuvant 65 in vaccines. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of what we are doing to make our children sick. And it's all through vaccines.
It's a self-perpetuating problem. And I, as a senior, I get irritated by all of the big pharma advertisements. It's just nonstop. They're either trying to sell you a car, trying to sell you clothes, or trying to sell you drugs. And I'm sure there's other things that I'm not thinking about right this second, but those are the three main advertisements. I like to watch NBC Nightly News, which is a 30-minute program. Well, you really only get about 22 minutes of program, and the rest of it's all advertisements, right?
Yes.
And you sit there and you listen to, I always mute all the advertisements because I get sick of listening to it.
I think a
But
lot of us do. Yes.
yeah, but when you do listen to it, they try to cram in all this information in like a 30-second clip, and they talk about the possible symptoms and complications of taking the drug. And I look at Katie every once in a while and I go, Jesus, I'd rather just deal with the issue. Whatever my medical issue is, because they tell you that basically if you take this medicine, it might help you, it could help you, it could lessen the symptoms, or it might even kill you, right? Or it may even give you worse
Yes.
symptoms than you've got now. And I'm like, who in their right
Yes.
mind is going to inject something into their body or take it orally through a pill that could possibly kill you? Or give you other symptoms that dwarf the original issue that you've got now. It's just
Apparently,
insanity.
James, a lot of people go for it, and that's the only reason they're doing it. They're
Oh, of
marketing.
course. Yeah.
In fact, we are one of 2 countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical marketing on TV. In fact, I knew a woman from Australia. She was shocked when she came here. She was like, "You people advertise drugs on TV?" She goes, "That's outlawed in our country." And, I do believe Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to try to get rid of that because it's true. The people go to their doctor and say, "Hey, doc, I want this." It's
Right.
no longer the doctor prescribing it. It's the people going in and saying, "Doc, I want this." I will tell you another major problem. And this is probably one of my biggest concerns. And I'm really praying that Robert Kennedy Jr. is able to do something about this. In the 1980s, the early 90s, we had a lot of babies being injured from the DTaP vaccine. It was called actually the DPT shot. It was causing severe neurological injury and death to the point where all the pharmaceutical companies who made the diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus vaccine were getting
Diphtheria,
sued.
yeah.
So they went to Congress and they said, look, if you don't do something to protect us, we're going to go out of business. We're getting sued because of the DTaP. And it actually started in the 70s, all through the 80s, they were getting sued. And again, I've seen children completely dependent, crippled in wheelchairs with breathing tubes and feeding tubes from those vaccines in my lifetime. So the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was signed into place by, unfortunately, my good old President Ronald Reagan. He was coerced, I believe, into signing this into Act 1986. And basically what it does is it bailed out all the vaccine manufacturers. All the financial liability was completely removed. No liability for death or injury whatsoever. Go ahead, make all your vaccines. Don't worry about it. You won't get sued. Okay? At the same time, Congress charged the Secretary of HHS, Secretary of Health and Human Services, with the explicit responsibility to provide safety studies showing that all the new vaccines are safe and effective. So, okay, we're going to remove liability, but HHS is your job. Every 2 years, I want safety studies on all vaccines that come out showing that they're safe and effective. And that way we'll know if they're not hurting anybody. And we'll be able to pull them off the market, right? By law, okay? So in 2018, Robert Kennedy Jr. and a group called I Can Decide, the Children Health Defense Network and ICanDecide.org, Robert Kennedy and Del Bigtree, they sued. They went through the Freedom of Information Act and they sued HHS and wanted all those reports. Show us the reports that you were ordered by law in 1986, showing that every vaccination that has been put into the system is safe and effective. And after fighting for it and fighting for it and fighting for it, guess what? Donald Trump was able to get them in front of HHS when he was first president. They discovered that Human Health and Services had not done one study. Not one. And at that time, that was 32 years. Okay. And now it's been 36 years and they have not done one study. So when your doctors tell you, and you hear the CDC and you hear the news, or you hear reporters on TV that are saying, take the damn vaccine. Not one safety study was done on any of these vaccines post them being in the program. Not one, to prove that they're safe and effective. Okay, that law in 1986 has to be removed. At the same time, they put into place something called VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. Again, to make sure everything's safe, the doctors by law were told that they had to report anything that looked like a vaccine injury into VAERS so that they could keep track of the vaccine injuries. During the congressional hearings in 2000 and 2003, they discovered that only 1% of all vaccine injuries get reported to VAERS. 1%. And then for anyone who goes through and has injuries, you can't sue. So they have something called the Vaccine Injury Compensation System. And that's where you have to go before 3 appointed judges. Now, mind you, they're not elected. They're appointed by the CDC,
Right.
who makes billions of dollars off of vaccines every year. They're appointed, and they are the ones who determine if you get money or not to help pay for that child's injury. And if your child dies from a vaccine, they reward you with $250,000. Okay? None of this is right. None of this is constitutional. None of this is good. Okay? And so on top of all of that, for years, for 35, 40 years, I've been saying, let's do a study comparing the unvaccinated to the vaccinated. You'll know who's healthier because as I've traveled around, I've probably seen hundreds of thousands of people in person at my lectures. Audiences anywhere from 40 to 6, 7, 8 people, 900 people. And I have seen more healthy unvaccinated children, but I've also seen more parents whose babies died, showing pictures of the before and after vaccination. I've seen so much evidence that I know the healthier children are the ones that don't get vaccinated, but our government refuses. And their excuse is it would be unethical to deny anybody a vaccine. And so just recently, within the last month, I've decided to look deeper into this. I find out that the children who are the control study, who don't get the new vaccine, are still given an injection of aluminum. So they might not get, they're not getting a virus. The control study are getting aluminum. And the other children get the new vaccine. So they're not even doing proper safety studies. That's not a control study. When you are giving the adjuvant in a vaccine as an injection without the virus, that's unethical. And yet they say they can't do that. It's unethical. So they double talk, they lie, they don't care, folks. They don't care.
Who in the right mind as a parent is going to agree to their children getting an injection with aluminum in it?
The parents aren't notified.
It doesn't make any sense.
They're not notified.
Right.
Unless they're paying parents to come in, here, try out this new vaccine, be part of the trials, be part of the safety trials. You don't know if your child is getting the new rotavirus vaccine or just a shot of aluminum. You don't know. And I'm sure they don't tell them you're going to get either the rotavirus vaccine or the aluminum. They don't tell them. And you know, they pay people to come in for these trials. And usually it's people who need money. It's the poor segment of our population. And that's a whole nother podcast. Man, I'm telling you, the stuff they do behind the scenes, it's unbelievable where they get their subject matters.
And I'm so excited that you are doing what you're doing, and I'm excited to have you on this podcast. And I know this is going to be kind of a mini series. I'm going to have you on here a couple of times in the near future. And I want to drag this crap out into the light. And I want to help educate the listening audience or the watching audience to understand this stuff. And that way they'll be more educated to make better decisions. So, Mary, thank you for being on the show today.
Pleasure, James.
And I want to say to the listening audience, and that brings us to the end of another episode of ABCs of Parenting Adult Children. A big thank you to Mary Tocco for sharing her experience, wisdom, and heart with us today. Thank you for your research. Your insights, Mary, remind us that parenting doesn't stop when our kids grow up. It simply changes shape. If today's
Yes.
episode resonated with you, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you know someone navigating the challenges of parenting adult children, share this episode with them. It might be just what they need to hear. You can find more resources, past episodes, and ways to connect with us at parentingadultchildren.org. Common spelling, parentingadultchildren.org. Follow us on Instagram at parentingadultchildren125. And if you have a story or question you'd like to share, send us an email at parentingadultchildren@proton.me. That's parentingadultchildren@proton.me. Thank you for the privilege of your time, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Please tune in next week for another episode of our podcast on parenting adult children.